Good morning. Good morning and welcome to Trade, Commerce, and Tourism Committee. It's Wednesday, June 1st. It's unbelievable. And we are expecting to be joined by Councilmember Rosendahl any moment. And I'm not sure we're going to be joined by Mr. LaBonge. So why don't we get started? Item 1.
Under item 1, the chief legislative analyst submits a report in response to motion Han-Koretz, which was introduced on April 15th, concerning the continuation of contractual services provided to the city by LA Inc., also known as the LA Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Good morning, John Wickham with the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst.
And is Mark coming up too? Or?
Steph Dietrich with the
okay.
Patty
All right.
are here. As you recall, back in 2006, the council, your committee, recommended approval, and we executed a contract with LA Inc. to continue their services. They provide services related to booking conventions and marketing the city and a whole range of activities in that area on the city's behalf. And as your motion indicated, it's been several years since that contract was approved, and it was time to take a look at that contract and make some evaluation recommendations concerning the next steps. So the CLA, with the help of the CAO and Convention Center, took a look at this, also spoke to the city attorney. And the first thing we did was we met with hotel managers to see.
Because we asked you to go see how they're doing, talk to hotels, what feedback are you getting, where could we improve, what things are we doing well.
Exactly.
Does it make sense to continue this relationship?
And the hotel managers are very happy with the service that LA Inc. is providing. We met with representatives from the Valley, from the Century Boulevard corridor out by the airport, downtown, a few areas around the city. And one of the things we did back in 2006 was we added Appendix E to the contract. And that outlines measurable goals for LA Inc. to comply with the contract and the services they provide. That was very new. It was something that we added in response to some of the controller audits that had happened back at the beginning of the century. Strange thing to say.
That's weird.
So that Appendix E provides a way to measure what they're doing. Okay. And one of the things we included in there was a requirement that they work with different regions in the city to ensure that the hotels in those regions are happy. And the response we got back from the hotel managers is that LA Inc. has been very effective in that way. The manager from the Valley and from Century City both indicated.
How about from the harbor area?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
We didn't have a San Pedro representative in the meeting. And we do need to follow up on that because San Pedro
that's kind of the complaint I always get from those hotels. Not necessarily specifically about LA Inc., but I do get that concern about the tourism, and I'm going to ask you a little bit about the tourism district that we just set up. Yeah. You know, the harbor area always feels a little disconnected and is not sure that this contract is evenly implemented through to those two hotels down there, and do they get left out, and are they disconnected, and what can we do to better work with them as well?
Yeah, that's a good point. We need to work a little bit more in some of the other areas. When the TMD
you probably should have come more prepared for that answer, seeing as how the chair of this committee actually is from San Pedro. I see Patty coming forward to defend herself. What do you have to say for yourself?
No, I just wanted to assure you.
Put your name on the record.
Okay. Patty McJenna with LA Inc. I just wanted to assure you that we, in the process of forming the tourism marketing district, we have been meeting with the properties in San Pedro. And in fact, Benson Lee's been on the steering committee, and so we have really accelerated dialogue.
Because that is a big concern down there.
Yes,
and in 2002, we were really working on the See My LA, and the cruise was a big part of that. We've begun to lose some of the cruise ship industry down in the harbor, so I think those hotels are going to want to, that was always sort of a automatic, they're okay because there's 1 million passengers that embark and disembark annually, and those hotels are okay as a result of that. That has dropped back dramatically. Right. So what else are we doing to ensure that those hotels are also seeing some of the advantage and benefiting from your marketing?
Yeah, no, the hotels there do have special needs. We've
Why don't you
also
pull the
been
mic a
meeting
little bit closer?
towards me.
Yeah. There you go.
We have, it's on, I guess. Those properties do have special needs, and we're aware of that. One of the things that we're going to be able to do much more effectively is market regionally once the tourism marketing district is absolutely in place. And so we've talked with them about the type of markets that are particularly important to them. So where we haven't really had the resources to, get that deep into regionally marketing, we will be able to going forward.
Good. John, did you get any feedback from the hotels as to our new rollout of the tourism marketing district?
Yes, we did. One of their concerns was that this contract be extended and renewed to ensure continuity for the rollout of the TMD.
The contract with LA Inc.
With LA Inc., they were concerned that there was an absolute necessity that there be continuity in here, there be some certainty in how this rolls out. And they actually also expressed the thought that they would not have been supportive of the TMD had it not been for LA Inc. and the work that they did in putting this program together. So they were very adamant that it was essential for the rollout and in the delivery of this program that LA Inc. Continue in the service.
Were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to add that, actually through the whole process of developing the tourism marketing district, the hotels have become much more engaged in the conversation, in the planning, and in the direction going forward. So for us, it's been, yes, a long process, but one that's actually going to be very, very useful going forward.
Good. Well, I mean, to me, there's no other entity that is as invested in or cares about really the vibrance of our city as LA Inc. does. So, and in light of what you just said about the continuity, I understand that this contract expires July 1st.
Yes, it does.
What are we doing to break the curse and cycle in the city of somehow never renewing our contracts on time? What can you do to ensure that this one will get renegotiated before July 1st?
Yeah, well, we've attached to the report a contract, a draft contract. It's the same contract that we have right now. The city attorney felt that it's a good contract, covers all the terms. LA Inc. is familiar, knows there's only one change, well, two changes. We've added to the scope, and I've mentioned this to both city attorney, CAO, and to LA Inc. And that is a requirement that they meet with city officials on an annual basis to discuss their marketing program. Right now, and this goes to your point about San Pedro, we don't really have a way to raise those issues in a more formal process. So having an annual presentation, it can be informal. It doesn't have to be in a council meeting. It could be, there's the budget process where we have those
Right.
opportunities, but an opportunity to raise issues and ideas and concerns.
Right. And so how long is this contract for?
This is a 3-year contract.
3-year contract. So you're asking for annual reports?
Annual reports
Right.
at a minimum.
Right. And yes, were you going to say something, Patty?
No, go ahead.
Oh. Obviously, this committee is also another excellent vehicle to bring up issues of concern or possible, suggestions. So would like to maybe make sure that we schedule, also an annual update in this committee as well.
Or
Maybe
more
even,
often.
or more often. I actually like to say twice a year, like
Yeah.
6 months. So the next one would be in December.
Yeah, we're happy to.
Yeah,
come and
because I
report
think
on
this,
more
I think you've got, and I don't know how this committee will look in the future in terms of the change of personnel sitting on this side, but certainly Bill Rosendahl and Tom LaBonge, they certainly are very well connected to the pulse of, what's going on in terms of marketing this city. There's probably no two other council members are as interested in marketing particular parts of the city as these two. So I think this would be an opportunity. So let's ask for at least a semi-annual update in this committee. Yes.
Good morning. Diana Mangiola, Office of the CAO. We just wanted to add that CAO's office manages administers the contract with LA Inc. And so what we've done with LA Inc. in the past year is they're required to report on a quarterly basis. And so on a quarterly basis, they provide a binder to us of the status of their goals and what they've done up to that point in time. What we could do is also have on a quarterly basis or semi-annually have LA Inc. come and share what how they've met their quarterly reports.
Mm-hmm.
But in addition to that, what they do is they do report to committee and the Budget and Finance Committee
Mm-hmm.
on an annual basis as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we just wanted to convey that we do have a reporting mechanism
Mm-hmm.
in place, and that that's the process that we've been undergoing in the past year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And finally, in our due diligence on reviewing this contract, we spoke to the CAO about LA Inc.'s compliance with that Appendix E over the last 5 years, and they have complied fully with the terms in there. And there's actually an Office of Finance audit of LA Inc. that was conducted in 2010. I believe that's done annually, and that audit also confirmed that LA Inc. is
right. I
compliant.
mean, I hear all this, but I'm just picking that one little piece about San Pedro. I mean, it seems like all this mechanism was in place. There was annual reporting, there was goals, there was, the status reports, and yet this one little piece, there was no mechanism
Yeah,
to, get back or get a real sense of what's
And-
going on with the hotels
And
in
that's
in
why
San
this
Pedro.
addition
So-
to the contract requiring this kind of an annual meet or a
we
periodic
should
meeting.
put an Appendix F, San
Yeah.
Pedro.
Well, actually, going forward with the Tourism Marketing District, it does call for representation
Right.
from
Oh,
the
good.
coastal area.
Right.
So, that's
Right.
incorporated. And currently, there's someone on.
There's always just an opportunity for, more input, but particularly from council members. So
Yeah,
let's
so-
just add this piece in to going forward. So you're assuring me that this contract will be signed, sealed, and delivered before July 1st?
Yes.
Yes.
Assuming the council file gets to council, because council action is required.
Oh, don't be
approve
trying to
the-
blame it on us.
Just urging.
Yeah.
that We all have a role in helping
We
this
do.
through.
Well, thank you all for your great work, John. Great work on all this. I know you spent a lot of time on it, Patty, as always. And
Oh, my goodness.
we're joined by Councilmember Bill Rosendahl. With that, now that I have you here, hello, welcome back.
Thank you.
We're just talking about the renewing of the contract with LA Inc. I didn't know if you had any questions on item 1.
I
And
just want to know if there's any update on the Century Corridor, first of all, and the mini convention center, what we're calling a conference center, incubation spot. Any work on that since our last discussion on it?
We haven't been, I personally haven't been as involved in the conversations on the conference side. Our convention division would be more involved in that, or more aware of the discussions, but I don't think there's been a lot of movement. But we're not leading that effort, so.
Okay, well, I'd like a report back on that as well.
Sure, be
Okay.
happy to.
And anything on the Venice Beach business, as you see it and promoting it, it has become, let's face it, with Disneyland and the others, expensive tickets, it is a place to go. Our police were incredible this weekend there on Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
And hundreds of thousands of people are going. What do you see your relationship with supporting Venice Beach?
Well, we've been very involved. We sit on the board of the Chamber of Venice Beach as well. We're trying to, I think maybe as you know, get been working with Parks and Rec to identify a visitor information center there. But we're out looking for outside funding to help make that a reality.
The Visitors Entertainment Center is a big idea that I've had for many
Yeah.
years, and I'd like to put it right there where the pavilion used to be. And when people come, they can buy something that reminds them of Venice Beach, and at the same time, it could be a revenue stream and a public-private partnership.
Yeah, well, we're hopeful. Parks and Rec has been very helpful in that effort. So we are now looking for outside sponsors, partners.
Okay, what I'd like, of course I'm going to approve this, but a report back on how we're working with there's several groups in Venice. There is the chamber, but there's also a group along the beach
Right.
that are in the process of potentially creating a bid. And we have three big issues, okay? One is the lighting. We got to improve the lighting. Two, we need to maintain those restrooms. Every hour they need to be cleaned. And three, we have to empty the garbage on an absolutely regular basis. The funds from the city are not there. And so we need a public-private partnership. And whatever LA Inc. can do to assist us in this, it's a tourist-generating opportunity. It's a multiplier effect on the economy. So we can be more exact in another discussion. Did you want to say something? You were kind of nodding? No. No, that's you. No, okay. All right. I'd like a report back on how the partnerships at Venice Beach with LA Inc.
Sure,
can work
sure.
for tourism and for those maintenance issues.
Yeah, we'd like to see the bid as well.
Okay,
All right.
great. Thank you very much. Appreciate all your hard work.
Okay, thank you.
So we so move in second.
Right.
For the record, since we didn't receive the CLA's report till this morning, we're approving this proposed new contract then, this committee's action.
The recommendations. of
Yes, we're
CLA
approving the CLA's recommendations.
Great. With the councilman's two
Yes.
additions for reports back.
Right, right.
Terrific.
And with the addition of the reporting back to this committee.
Yeah, and let me just throw a couple of more quick ones at you. Do you promote Santa Monica as LA Inc.?
We promote the greater Los Angeles area, particularly if we're talking to the international market. They don't necessarily know where boundaries stop and start. So we do in the overall. What we try and do actually is when we're promoting internationally is work with our other partners in those communities. Certainly our membership extends beyond that, but particularly with the Tourism Marketing District funds, we'll be focusing on City of LA hotels.
Okay, that's very important to me. Though I love Santa Monica, it's in the heart of my district.
Sure.
But the fact is, it's the LA. And last thing is about farmers markets. They've become very mature in our city, and in some places it's a big fun community event.
They've become an attraction, I
Mar
agree.
Vista. People come from all over. Do you put that out there too?
Yes, we do. We have it on our sites. We actually promote it as an activity, a visitor activity, because they've become quite an attraction.
Okay, all right.
So yes.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
with that, we'll approve that item. Let's go on to item 2.
Under item 2, the city administrative officer submits the second of 2 reports in response to motion Han Alarcon, introduced on May 28, 2010, concerning the once pending award of a new contract for food and beverage services at the LA Convention Center and the proposed plan to identify alternative business models for operating the convention center.
Hi.
Good morning. Diana Mangiolo, Office of the CAO. Before you is a contract to consider extending, before you is a CAO report recommending that the existing food and beverage services contract at the convention center be extended to a 1-year term. Currently, it's on a month-to-month extension basis. The reason why we've made the recommendation is because at the same time we'll be releasing our report on private management proposal for the committee and the council to consider. If the council decides to issue an RFP and decides to select a private operator, then that private operator would be providing food and beverage services. So what we wanted to do was to extend the contract on an annual basis to ensure continuity.
Right. Okay, here's the deal. I'm probably going to approve this, and I don't know how my fellow council member feels about this. But, this has been dragging on for a while. And while I think Aramark has done a good job, and I do also am very sympathetic to the idea that the continuity, particularly for the employees, is important. And I know I've heard from my labor friends that instability with the labor force is a problem in a lot of places. Like they don't know, is there a contract? Isn't there a contract? Are we doing RFP? Aren't we doing RFP? Is the management going to change? Isn't going to change? I understand that employees need to have some stability, and I think that's what makes for a happier, healthier employee base. But I got to tell you, this process is really dragging out. Because I know it was last August, I believe we went to a month-to-month. And we've been talking about, well, yeah, maybe there'll be a private management. I really thought we were moving forward on that idea of, doing an RFP for a private management company. And maybe when they come in, they would take over the food and beverage. So let's not do it. But, while on one instance, I'm okay with this, and I think Aramark has done a good job, and I like the fact that the employees, I've had many of them come up to me in the convention center and talk about the conditions there and how happy they are and how supported they feel. But on the other hand, this makes us look sort of, I think it's difficult when we're also receiving bids from other companies who have been out there just in limbo now for 2 years, a year and a half. I feel like the convention center sort of made their own decisions without council direction or without mayoral direction, because the convention center reports to the mayor. And it was my understanding that the mayor and Austin Butner said, do this RFP for private management, go through the selection process, and then it was my understanding that the convention center sort of decided not to do that anymore and didn't go through with the process, or not the private management, but the new RFP for food and beverage. They decided not to finish it and go for final selection. So who makes the decisions around here, really?
We can only
I know.
talk about the privatization contract, and once that was put into the CAO's lap, we felt that it was better to extend the current contract for continuity. That if you were going to change, so it kind of put us in a difficult position because you were in the middle of this other RFP, and yet we had direction to go, choosing, to look at privatization. So the two of them kind of came together, and unfortunately, it was the food and beverage that, that got postponed. I mean, we're not defending that decision, but I can't tell
So
you.
where are we on the private management? Is that really going to happen?
Well, we are in the midst of preparing a report back to council, and
Boy, that was the most vague bureaucratic answer I've ever heard.
Well,
we are in the
bureaucratic-
midst of looking at preparing
We
a
hired
report
consultants.
back to the council.
we hired a consultant who has helped us, who put together a report, and we've worked with the convention center and other, with the hotels and with LA Inc. and got everybody's opinion. And
So are we releasing an RFP? When?
well, we're releasing reports. Up to
releasing
you
a
whether-
report,
Right.
not the
Releasing a
RFP.
report with an attached RFP for you to decide whether or not you want to release it, and that hopefully will be done by.
Again, the problem is somebody put together a report to release an RFP for food and beverage, which we did, and then it never finished its course.
Correct. And the CAO, if you instruct the CAO to release the RFP, we will, and we will fulfill the process. I
Of
can guarantee
the
you.
private management.
If you release the RFP, we will go through
Yeah.
and accept proposals, rank the proposals, and come back to you with the recommendation.
Because that's what I don't understand about what didn't happen with the
Well,
food
the
and
convention
beverage.
center's here.
Yeah, I know. Would the convention center like to at least come up and tell us why that decision was made to not go through the whole process with food and beverage?
Good morning.
Because I know an RFP was released.
Good morning. Philip Hill, Assistant General Manager and Chief Operations Officer. It's great to see you this morning.
Let's dispense with the.
Very good. I want to make sure I announce myself appropriately here. But anyway, yes, my understanding going back in time was a while back in council, we were given an instruction that to go back to all of the vendors that we work with and to be able to attempt to negotiate a 10% reduction in exchange for a maximum of a 1-year extension. That was complied with across virtually all of our contracts.
So we didn't do a new RFP. You never released a new RFP for food and beverage.
No, we did not.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
I thought you did. Okay, some people are saying yes, some people are.
I'm misunderstanding
It
your
was
question.
my impression that you released an RFP,
Yes, we
got
did.
back responses.
Yes, we did.
But did not finish through the selection process.
That is correct.
Okay, why not?
Because a council directive we received, number one, was to go back and renegotiate all existing contracts for a 10% reduction in the cost across all of our contracts in exchange for up to a year. I believe I'm quoting that correctly. The second phase, we did that across our contracts. That was successful, as requested by council. The second thing was, in the interest of stability, because of what was going on with the CEO's report, this committee did take a leadership role to then, at that point, give the CEO more time to do that. And that's where we're at now. The concern we're at right now, where we support the CEO's recommendation, is that we are in the middle of something very big right now.
So then let me just say, do you go back to those who responded, these well-respected businesses who put in do we go back to them and explain to them?
We did.
Because that's,
We
you know, I don't hear that
Yes.
in my office. I hear people saying, ask for the status. What's going on? We do not know what's going on. We complied. We're responsible. We want to participate in this,
Yes.
and then nothing.
There was full information provided, and everyone's been kept informed. So yes, we're on top of that. It's just right now, what's really happened in the city and why we support the CEO's
You
recommendation.
can understand how they would be disappointed.
I can definitely understand that. There's no doubt about that.
So
Okay.
Phil, go ahead, finish your point.
Okay. Right now, the big focus in the convention center comes into a couple of primary areas. Number one is basically, of course, event production and revenue. But just as important, the big elephant in the room now is support of the stadium process, which is the about year-long EIR process. And with that comes, the selection, which has been done of Gensler, of the architect for the event center, the stadium, and the pending selection near term of the architect for the convention center, and how all that works together, and how do you make it work, and mobility studies and all this. What's happening on a client end, the key word is stability. What's going on with the center, like you were appropriately mentioning regarding employees? They're thinking about stability in their families, and we understand 100%. We're also thinking about from a client end, they're saying, will the convention center be there? What is the stadium? How will it impact? If you destroy the West Hall, where will my event be? So a lot of the focus now is trying to understand the big picture, and in support of what the CEO was saying, by time, basically, while we can.
So you think a year extension of this contract will at least get us through all these variables? You think within a year we'll know?
I believe so, and the reasoning behind that is the EIR process takes about that amount of time.
Councilmember, the CEO's office recommended a year extension because if council, let's say, decides to approve issuing an RFP, we're projecting that
Issuing an RFP for the private management.
I'm sorry, for the private management. We're projecting that by the time we go through the process and make a selection, that there would be an operator in place by the end of that year. If council chooses not to issue an RFP for a private management contract, and there may be some discussion, some back and forth that may be associated with that until we get to that point. But once council finally decides, we may still be at the end of that year or maybe beforehand. And then at that point, we can revisit the issue and council would decide, okay, we're going to move forward with the food and
If we
beverage
revisit the
RFP
issue, would the
process.
current RFP and the responders and the process be just picked up and continued, or do you see that starting over for food and beverage?
That part is a question we have. We don't have the answer yet to that one. I think that might go back into a city attorney question. I can't answer by myself right here.
The RFP the proposal should have had a term in which the bids were good for. So the city attorney will have to determine, because you haven't stopped the process. You have not officially stopped the process. So the question will be,
Right. I think that was the confusion probably with this direction of going back and negotiating a 10% discount, and somehow that stopped any process going forward. I think that was a decision that was made probably arbitrarily.
It was not intended to stop a process. It's simply a delay.
yes,
Yes.
yeah, I think so.
Delay to one is stop to another.
Yes.
Good morning. Terry Martin Brown, Assistant City Attorney. We'll be happy, my office, to take a look at the RFP and determine if we can still go forward, if those bids are still, if the bids that are currently on the table are still viable according to the terms of the RFP.
Yeah, I just think you need to be prepared. I think this is a fairly large initiative with a stadium and a new convention center and food and beverage and how we move forward making this convention center what we want it to be is, one of the top destinations in the country. We want conventions here. We want tourists here. That adds to our economy and that creates jobs. So I think we just need to be ready. I think it's been difficult for us to do parallel tracks in this city and be ready for events that tend to shape our destiny and our future. So I don't think you should wait a year, I think is what I'm saying, until you decide how you're going to move forward with food and beverage. Mr. Rosendahl.
I think Ms. Hahn covered all the questions. The clarity we need just came from you, Phil. You're putting it on hold pending the NFL business and where all that issues go so that you can keep the stability of the present situation.
That is correct.
Your bottom line.
That is correct.
Well, what I'd like is, again, in 2 months, if we could do this, a report back on the status of this whole issue in context of where we might be with the NFL situation at that time, and still feel comfortable if keeping it on hold for that to be clearer. But come back and tell us that in 2 months.
Council member, if
I don't want time to go by completely. Yeah.
If I may, I just want to make clear what the CAO's recommendation is based on.
Yeah.
Our recommendation to extend the contract
for a
is
year.
based on what the council will decide to do with the private management proposal and not the
There you go.
NFL stadium.
Okay, and where are we with that, with the private management proposal?
We will have a report for the council to consider this month, which will include a proposed RFP. If council decides to issue the RFP as is, then we could release the RFP as soon as council makes the final decision.
Right. But I do have a feeling that it's tied to the ultimate proposal of a stadium and a new convention center and the operators of both. I just feel like this is all tied together. So my message to everybody is that we all move forward, but be prepared, be flexible, just know your options. I think everyone here at the table needs to understand their options legally, and they need to understand our options as it will be communicated by the mayor and the city council. I just think there's a lot of tracks you need to be moving forward on. But today, what we're doing, which I think is a good idea, is to extend the contract for Aramark for another year. So there is some stability with at least that operator and those employees. But again, I think everyone needs to be prepared to change course as quickly as is possible in the city of Los
I'm
Angeles.
just curious, the report to full council, will it come to committee first?
Yes.
For us to look at?
Mhm.
Okay, and then once we look at it about the private thing, then it would go to the full council. And that
Yes.
again will be an opportunity for
With
us
your
to revisit
recommendation.
where we're at on all of it.
Mhm.
Okay.
So moved.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Need 'em. You're gonna need them every week for
I know.
10 years. Back there. I'm gonna ship them to you.
Great idea. Item 3.
You have to come to constituency.
Under item 3, the Board of Harbor Commissioners
Oh.
submits.
I'm sorry. We're going to have to reconsider item
See,
2.
I was asking you to come up.
Mark, I'm sorry.
The other matter, I don't want to go.
I am sorry. I apologize. So what should we do?
We pull our
Reconsider?
vote, yes.
Can we reconsider? Let's reconsider and reopen up item 2. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. I
Sorry,
appreciate
Mark.
that. Good morning. My name is Mark Edwards. I'm with the Afria Consulting Group.
Yeah.
I'm here representing Centerplate, which is one of the bidders for the food and beverage concessions. And more to the point, it's been over 2 years. It's been almost 3 years since this process was initiated. And originally, they were going to complete it in about 5 months, and before everything got confused and convoluted, just got messed up. But more to the point, I just want to say I strongly believe on behalf of our client and personally, this is a bad deal for the city and it's bad policy. If the convention center made a recommendation tomorrow on the food and beverage, the city has the potential to receive the following benefits: a significant front-end investment of capital for food and beverage improvements by any one of the bidders, The current fee that the convention center is paying for food and beverage is significantly higher than a fee a successful bidder would pay. It's safe to say the convention center could be saving a minimum of $250,000 per year on fee alone. Greater involvement of local institutions such as Harbor Community College, LA Trade Tech, Homeboy, Industries, and Homegirl. And I want to say that what this message is saying to the city, what the city is giving to corporate America is this. Bidders come to Los Angeles in good faith. Invest substantial capital to even compete for opportunities. We're not saying we're going to have a guarantee, but not going forward sends the message that Los Angeles might not be a place where you can expect these investments to have results,
Yep, you're
let alone
right.
be taken seriously. And I think a classic example is if you go out for this private management, you're probably going to limit the pool of bidders who are willing to risk that type of investment to achieve any success. And it's not going to be clear how the outcome is going to be because you still have the stadium to take into consideration. So that being said, I want to close by this. We believe a 3-month extension of the current contract is appropriate. A convention center staff should be directed to select a firm to operate the food and beverage services for the convention center because that is good policy and it's a good deal for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I apologize. And we also have your letter that was sent to each of us. I don't know if you got to see a copy of it, Bill.
And there's a timeline that
But it's a very well thought out position, which I was trying to articulate a little bit in my discussion.
and we appreciate that. Thank you.
That the idea that privatization is anyway a roadblock to reletting out this contract is sort of a misnomer. So
Right, and the argument we're making that if they had released this a year ago, we'd be a year into it.
right now, I don't want to.
We don't know who's going to win it, but just
Right.
have some closure and just finally be.
Right, and I don't want to, have anybody tattletale on anybody, but do you feel like along the way your client has, or you have been kept abreast of where we're at and why we're doing things that we're doing?
We were told facts, but we're never given any background on the facts and never told where that process would lead. Nothing finite was told as to this would be a year and then we'll make a decision. It was
Right.
always
Right.
if and buts.
Right, and I appreciate what you said because I think that's I think that was my dilemma this morning was the stability of the workforce versus this signal that we're sending to investors that we are not business friendly and that again this is a long drawn out process. I can't imagine any bidder actually really appreciating this or enjoying this process in the city of Los Angeles. I've been very disappointed in it myself. I don't know if you are still in agreement after hearing this that you want to extend this contract for a year? Or?
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, and getting this letter too, what I'd like to do, since now we know that in a month we're going to get a report back on the whole concept of this, is that we extend it for the 3 months. I mean, it doesn't matter to me if it's 3 months or month to month at this point, but basically an opportunity to work into the process itself, the potential of this bidding thing. I'm not saying I'm for or against it, but I'd like to keep my options open if, in fact, you get back to us in a month with a proposal that would issue an RFP that would also appreciate the process. When I look at this timeline, it was 2009, when you have it start January 28, 2009, and it goes on and on and on. So it is a couple of years. What's your response to that?
Well, if council chooses not to adopt the recommendation, then the contract would continue on a month-to-month basis until
Because it's already on a month-to-month.
right.
Yeah, and what's the downside about that, other than before we just said a year? I'm just curious why you wanted that stability. Was it basically what?
Well, our
Bill was saying?
concern was given what our projected timeline was, considering if council decides to move forward with the RFP process, that we wanted to make sure there was some form of continuity or stability with food and beverage service.
With the workforce.
So-
Right, and this part of this process of the privatization, not to interrupt Deanna, we had these consultants on board that were helping us with the convention center, looking at the convention center. One of the things that they said, extending it for the year does give stability to the convention center. It gives the stability to those who are booking, knowing who their contractor will be. It also keeps employees there. That if Aramac knows that it's only a year-to-year contract, they may start pooling their people to go elsewhere. So our
But it's been
concern,
month to month for how long?
I believe
Yeah.
a year.
For a year.
Right.
Or
Right, and I see
So,
Mr. Bustamante in the back, who is
so
actually,
our concern, after talking to our
why
consultants,
don't you and
was
Mark switch
that
places?
maybe the year would give us some, like I said, some options, some breathing space. Now, this contract can be terminated in 30 days. I mean, all our contracts have termination clauses in
Of course,
them.
we kind of feel like you've had breathing space, like, for 3 years.
We have, and I can't respond to why the convention center took so long. All I know is that the council gave the CAO a certain direction as part of the 3-year stability plan, so we moved forward as quickly as we could.
Right.
That's all I can
Right.
say.
Let's give something, Mr. Bustamante, whose client is,
Yes, Michael Bustamante
Yes.
representing Aramark.
Yes.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr.
Right.
Councilman. We support, obviously, the CAO's recommendation.
Of course you do.
And I'll tell you why. I mean, the fact of the matter is we've already lost some employees as a result of the lack of certainty. You have a Homeboy Cup. We do work with Homeboy at the convention center.
15 years.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, we haven't the ability to enter into a long-term contract with them. We'd like to, we have served some of their products there, but we'd like to have a longer-term ability to do stuff. We've worked with them to hire some of the Homeboy.
so with
folks.
this 1-year extension,
The
would you do that?
Well, we're doing it now, and we'd have the ability to do it for that year, yes, absolutely. The certainty that comes with this 1 year is imperative to us in this business. We've been frustrated as well with dealing with a month-to-month contract because the fact of the matter is we've lost some of our good people.
True.
And, the 1-year contract the extension allows us the ability to keep the people we have, put in place good management, and do the job that we've been doing for the years at the convention center.
Right. And obviously, in retrospect, July 1st will have almost been a year since we made this month-to-month decision, which I believe was last August.
That's correct.
So,
but
in
I
retrospect,
mean,
we probably should have just given you a year at that point.
Yeah, but we made that argument, but at the time, the issue of privatization of the convention center hadn't really come to the fore. It hadn't ripened yet. And the fact of the matter is that
course,
given
yeah.
the fact that we've got
Right.
this privatization
Right.
issue, this allows it to run on an equal track. And if you decide to go with privatization, then you still have
Right.
people there working at the convention center. If
Right.
you don't,
Yeah.
then
True.
then all bets
And
are
by the
off.
way, again, at the end of the day, I talked to a lot of potential private management companies who do it either way. They either come in and take the current contractor, food and beverage, or they start over and bring in their own. I've
That's
talked
correct.
to them that they do it both ways. There's examples on both. So again, I don't know why we just didn't move forward.
We
at
don't
least
believe there's
with
an
the-
advantage to being there. I mean, there's no greater
Clean
advantage to being there
process.
than not.
Yeah.
And, one last point I would make is this. I mean, our friends at SCU and Labor, we, as you pointed out early on, they're very supportive of Aramark. They're very supportive of this process.
They are.
So, that's another reason why we ask that you
Right.
support the CAO's recommendation.
And there also will be a trend, like you said, we know that there are different ways that these private contractors could possibly.
Right, so we probably should have just not made that
Correct.
our criteria, but nevertheless, we did. Here we are. Of course, you support, but I am, and I was willing to support this today because I understand the continuity, particularly for our labor force. I think it's important to people whose families actually depend on these jobs. But I got to tell you, I have not enjoyed the decisions that you all have made in the past. And I think some of them were arbitrary and were not at the direction of our council or our mayor. So, and I think, again, for a bidder, and you would have felt the same way if you were outside looking in.
Well, look,
and you were a bidder,
We're
you would have felt
inside,
it.
and we're frustrated too. I mean, so
Yeah.
but we're frustrated two ways. On the
Right.
one hand, there's a process that
Right.
hasn't been finished,
Right.
and on the other, we're leaking
Right.
oil when it comes to
Right.
workforce and trying to keep everybody happy, and also do the job that we're trying to do for the convention center in the city.
Right.
So we've got it from both sides, not just the bidders.
I agree. So I think that really comes back to the convention center and the staff. This has been a frustrating process, and you really need. I think people have always said in Los Angeles they'd rather get a decisive no than a drawn out yes. It just is a process that we've got to figure out how to do a better job. Whether it's at the airport, by the way, or at the convention center, or at the port. I mean, we just have a bad reputation on RFPs. We have a bad reputation on selection process. We have a bad reputation on starting over, and then the process takes another 2 years. it's a bad, and I think if there was anything the city could do to be more business friendly, and I know the mayor's put together teams, and the council has put together initiatives to try to somehow change the way we do this, but we can't figure it out yet, and it's unfortunate. Having said that, I don't know what I just said. I don't know. I mean, I'm sticking.
Would like to make one final comment. Something that Mr. Bustamante said, backed up by Natalie, makes excellent sense. And if you really think about the environment we're in, think of a stadium concept or a client model for a stadium versus a client model for a convention center. Our events book 3 to 5 years in advance. Some of them more than a decade. We're booking business out into the 2026, 2027 region, believe it or not. So these clients, when they come here, Microsoft and E3, their food and beverage planning happens a while back. Mm-hmm. So the stability of knowing who you're going to be working with is vital. And that's vital for the kind of clientele we have with all of the change that is happening or potential change regarding privatization potential, stadium, new hall, or what we call the new hall for the convention center, and many other items. Clients need a reason to have stability if they're not going to attrit to our very capable clients. Very capable competitors, San Diego, San Francisco, Anaheim, Vegas.
Natalie, was there one more comment for you? Okay, so...
I mean, I agree. I mean, I think at this point, it would be sort of punishing to do this on a 3-month, and
back to the year.
I think we have to agree to the year, but, again, we got to figure out, and by the way, your potential clients, customers, have got to have, faith in the convention center staff, that no matter who is their food and beverage vendor, no matter who, is managing. I mean, we've got to figure out a way to be flexible, because you guys have come to me and said, we have to be more flexible. We have to work more like a private business. But now you're throwing at me that, well, we can't really be flexible because people who are coming here in 2016 have to know who they're working with today. So, we can't have it both ways. We got to be lean and mean. We got to be competitive, but we have to be ready to enter into the new century and be a convention center that is, people are going to want to be here, and Los Angeles has to be the kind of city that people want to bring their conventions to. So anyway, thank you, Mark, for bringing up some very good points. And
go with the stability factor
yeah,
for the year, okay?
That's what we're going to go with.
And let that happen, but report back in a month to the committee where we're going on the whole issue.
Right. Okay.
Under item 3.
No. Okay.
Under item 3, the Board of Harbor Commissioners submits for approval.
Hey, let's, I've just got a little note from my, my Deputy Chief of Staff that says if there are no questions, maybe in the interest of time, we approve 5, 6, 7, and 8 unless there are no questions.
It's fine. Unless somebody wants to talk about 7.
I don't have any cards.
Okay.
So now, do you want to do 3 and 4?
Let me just look one quick.
Okay,
Say 5, 6, 7.
Yeah. I had a heads up on that, so if you want to take a moment.
I don't think I do either. I just want to double check.
A lot of questions there.
7 is the airport.
Mm-hmm.
No questions. And 8, fine.
Okay, so let's approve 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Right.
And of course, they'll come to council, so if we have more issues at that point, we can bring them up.
Very good.
Okay, so now let's go back to 3.
Under item 3, we have the First Amendment to the agreement with Bergen Associates, which is a contract for construction management services for the Harry Bridges Boulevard Buffer Project and the Harry Bridges Boulevard Improvements Project. First Amendment would extend the term from 3 years to 4 years to expire on July 28th, 2012.
Okay, of course, first thing I'm going to say is we're opening this on Saturday. Why do we need an amendment to our agreement that lasts another year for the construction and management services of the buffer zone?
Mike Christensen, Deputy Executive Director of the Harbor Department.
Yeah.
We need the extension of 1 year in that even though we're opening the park this Saturday, We'll have some cleanup punch list items that will extend the actual completion till about September. And what we like to do on these contracts is have them lag the contract actual construction completion by 6 or 8 months so that we can do final closeouts, as-built drawings, and so forth.
Okay. But this also covers Harry Bridges Boulevard improvements as well,
That's
not
correct.
just the buffer zone.
That's correct. And the Harry Bridges Boulevard completion will be in January of 2012.
So then why is this only going to July 28th, 2011?
No,
It
2012.
currently expires July 28th of 2011. We are requesting a 1-year extension to July of 2012.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that. Oh, there it is. Okay, all right. Any questions?
So moved.
Okay, this is a very good contractor. Deborah Berg has been a long time good contractor, has done projects with the Alameda Corridor, a local San Pedro, a woman-owned construction management contractor. So I think this is
The small business, local.
small business,
They-
local,
heads
right.
to head with the big guys. in
I
the
love it.
contract.
I love it. Makes me very happy to approve this.
Wait.
Okay, let's approve it.
So moved.
Okay.
And we look forward to seeing you, council members, at
Saturday, yes, that'll be a great project opening. Long awaited for the community of Wilmington. Okay.
Under item 4, we also have a First Amendment to an agreement with Trans Systems Corporation, another contract for construction management services, and this is for the Cabrillo Way Marina Phase 2 project. This amendment would extend the term by 205 days, which is approximately 7 months, to allow for continuation of the construction management services through completion of the project. The CAO has submitted a report and recommendation for approval.
Okay, so what's the schedule of this Marina Phase 2? By the way, it looks fabulous, beautiful, spectacular, better than anyone ever thought.
We agree.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you.
It's absolutely gorgeous. So impressed.
We are anticipating, council members, the September of this year would be completion.
Okay.
Which is about the same time as the contract expiration. So once again, we'd like to have this contract extended to cover the final project punch list and closeout activities. Great.
Now, this talks about a Boy Scout campground. What's that? I mean, is there improvement, or this is just talking about the background of what's
No,
there?
I was just describing the
Oh,
vicinity.
there's no improvement being
Correct.
suggested.
This
with that. Okay.
contract does not cover.
Okay, you're just talking about what's there. All right. Okay, and the schedule. You're on schedule.
We're currently on schedule to complete in September of this year,
Okay.
actual construction, and then closeout will.
By the way, what is the contract for the Boy Scout campground? What is their lease?
Councilmember, I'll have to get back to you on that. I want to say it's 5, 6, 7 more years, but we can let you know.
Okay.
It was a long-term contract for
I
these.
know. Something that I think probably in retrospect was a bad idea. It is prime waterfront property, and it's a private organization that does not allow everyone to join and is not good about leasing that or letting other groups use that spot. In retrospect, I think we've tried to wrest it back from them to give it back to the harbor department, and been unsuccessful. But every time I see it, I just think it's prime recreational waterfront property that is controlled by a private organization, which, it's unfortunate. I mean, I think they've done good work, and they've actually had a lot of kids that have come there, but I've known of organizations that were not allowed to use it, and that's unfortunate for that piece of property. Just look into it and see when we can get out of it. Okay, so we'll approve that?
Yep.
Okay, are we done?
Item 9.
Oh, 9.
Which is an airport item. The Board of Airport Commissioners submits for approval the Fifth Amendment to the operating agreement with Service Air, which is for operation of the Courtesy Airport Shuttle Service at LAX. The amendment would extend the term by 24 months and would expire then on June 30th, 2013, pending the department's current efforts to consider integration of the courtesy shuttle services with parking lot management and other parking-related issues.
So another RFP that got thrown out, starting over. What's the timeline? What's the new schedule?
The new schedule is to have an RFP out by the end of the year.
Your name for the record?
Oh, my name's Steve
Sorry.
Martin from Los Angeles World Airports. To have an RFP out before the end of the year on the shuttle bus operation.
And then when would the selection be?
Selection probably would be in the first half of next year. So we don't expect to use the full 24 months that was identified in the term, and we have a 60-day out clause in the extension that we just negotiated.
Because when I first read that, that seemed like a really long time again, 2 years,
Right.
just
The only-
because an RFP got thrown out.
The only reason that we've added time is that we are giving consideration to the way the shuttle buses work with the parking lots. Right now, we have a shuttle bus operation, a parking lot operator, and a revenue control system operator, all in different hands. And we're at least examining the idea that at least for some of the parking lots, you might combine the shuttle bus service, the revenue control system, and the running of the parking lot into one. If we wanted to do that, we'd need to have a little more time in order to break this very,
Okay.
very large bus contract into
Okay.
different parts.
Okay.
Just curious about the UCLA business. Are you involved in that one?
Only indirectly. I know there were discussions last week about, with UCLA about what can be done to make the operation.
Well, I lost about $9 million.
Yeah, it's something like $9 million. It's a lot of money. And I know that they brought forward some ideas for cutting costs and increasing revenues that are under discussion. So
The
that
downtown one from the train station is going well, right?
it's going great, better than expectation.
And which ones are going well and which ones aren't?
The Van Nuys obviously has been around for 20 years and
Yeah.
does very well.
Yeah.
The Union Station one's fantastic.
Yeah.
The Westwood one has suffered from low ridership given the amount of frequency we have to run to meet the service levels.
Right.
And then we have the Irvine one, which is not losing much money but not carrying many passengers. So its operating performance is not that great. Its financial performance is not as bad as Westwood.
Okay, so indirectly, we have a role with this. Who's responsible for the revenue? It's your money, though, right?
Yeah,
Right.
it's the airport's money.
Right.
And when will you make a decision on UCLA? Or has it already been made?
I think we've scheduled it to be discussed with our board again on Monday. When we talked to the board about it last week, they asked us to go off and have direct discussions with UCLA, which we have done, and we're going to report back.
Okay, and then Irvine, that one.
Irvine is a work in progress. I mean, we don't have a lot of ridership. We are looking at adding, and we've discussed this with the board, a possible one-stop in somewhere near the Long Beach area or the San Pedro area, if it fits into the schedule, so that you could say, all right, for the people in Irvine, it's a one-stop service, which isn't that bad given the length of time the drive is. And we think there's a market in the,
Okay, so those two will go back to the Board of Commissioners and eventually to us. for
Yes.
discussion.
Yep.
Fine.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll approve that. Okay, we've come to the end of our agenda. No, that was item 2. Okay, is anybody else wishing to address us? Bob Henry, I see you in the audience. I just want you to know that my grandchildren were here for the weekend, and we went down to the fountain, rode the red car up and back, was packed. And I will tell you, I always hear from, I'm not going to say who tells me these things, but we want to, get the schedule, and I know you agree with it, get that schedule back up full time. I say if the fountain is operating, the red car should be operating. If there's shows going on, the red car should be operating. Holidays, weekends, it's starting to be summer. It's a fabulous attraction that we have in the harbor area. It's always clean, well-maintained. The conductors are excellent, family-friendly. The other thing I was very upset to hear about was budget cuts at the harbor, who, by the way, we're having more containers going through the harbor than we have like in 10 years. So revenues are hugely up. You cut the conductor hats that you gave to children. They handed out coloring books, but my grandchildren were sorely disappointed at not receiving the cardboard conductor hats. Could you look into that and see whether or not the port in all its largesse and richness might not spare a little money to make the children happy who come and visit the red car? Even I know, I have a picture with one on. Okay, thank you. Seeing that, we will end this meeting. But again, good work on the red car. It's just so well made. It's a great attraction. Should be running all the time. But again, a little more money from the Harbor Department, Mike Christensen, to continue coloring books and hats for the children. Thank you very much.